Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential, your weekly look at all things royal, brought to you from Mail Plus. I'm Jo Elvin, and once again, we've got lots of royal news to discuss, funnily enough, so let's get straight to it and hear the latest from the Daily Mail's royal editor, Rebecca English. Rebecca, two engagements that caught the eye this week, the Duchess of Cornwall at the National Theatre and a joint event with the Princess Royal and the Duchess of Cambridge.
Yeah, it's been a really busy week for royal engagements this week, and there were two, I think, that are particularly noteworthy. The first was the Duchess of Cornwall at the Royal National Theatre on Wednesday. She was undertaking her first engagement as its new royal patron. She obviously took over the role from the Duchess of Sussex, who was given the patronage on her marriage to Prince Harry by the Queen, who had a long-standing association with the theatre, and she thought Meghan would be the perfect fit for it, given her previous career as an actress, but obviously that was not to be. So the patronage was handed to Camilla earlier on this year, and as you would imagine, she entered into the role with particular enthusiasm and gusto, and she even got up on stage and smashed a few plates and joked about trying that at home. So I think it'll be quite a good fit, the theatre and the Duchess. And also there was an engagement on the same day involving the Duchess of Cambridge and the Princess Royal, Princess Anne. And I have to say, this engagement has got a lot of love, particularly on social media. It seems that people really like the idea of these two as a bit of a dynamic royal duo. And what was lovely was the engagement involved something they were both really passionate about, which is trying to campaign for better maternal health. And I think there's quite a lot of people really hoping they will see an engagement from the two women again in the not too distant future.
And a couple of your stories caught the eye too. The first was the Cambridges' planned move to the country.
Yeah, thanks, Jo. I had a couple of exclusives in the Daily Mail on Saturday, and one of them involved the Cambridges' planned move to the country. And I think things are really moving apace here. We're probably going to see an announcement on this quite soon. And what I've discovered is that not only are the couple looking for a school in Berkshire for their eldest son, Prince George, but they're also looking at potentially having Charlotte and Louis at the same school as well. And what this says to me is that the couple are really looking to shift the balance of family life out of London, out of Kensington Palace, into Berkshire, which is close to Kate's parents, Carol, Michael and Middleton, whom she's very close to, and they have a great involvement in the children's lives. It doesn't mean they're kind of relinquishing royal duties, far from it. Kensington Palace is always going to be their base. But I think their feeling is that, they do have another, possibly 10, 20, even more years before they actually exceed the throne. And they want to give their children the best chance of a relatively normal, unfettered childhood for as much of that time as they can. It's also worth noting that I've been told William and Kate have been looking at private homes in the country, as well as places on the Queen's Windsor estate, which has been covered extensively. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to take on a private home, because of course that does come with security issues and all sorts of other things, but it certainly has been suggested to me that they are casting their net far and wide to find the perfect family home in Berkshire to settle their family in.
And it seems like the security worries that were said to be stopping the Sussexes coming to the UK have been resolved, have they?
Well, I wouldn't go far to say that they have been resolved, but what I've been told is that Harry seemed fairly satisfied, mollified was the word used to me, by the arrangements that were put in place when he came to see the Queen the other week. He and Meghan were able to fly into the country, undetected by anyone. Actually, news of their arrival in the UK only emerged because they were spotted wandering around the Queen's Windsor estate. And that involved basically bringing over their private security, but also affording them a special escort group team when they were travelling outside of the royal estate. And he seemed to suggest, or this is what my sources say, is that he seemed to be fairly happy that this would offer him and his family adequate protection should he decide to bring the children over later on this year, possibly in time for the Platinum Jubilee as well. What this means for this High Court case he is pursuing against the Home Office, I don't quite know, but there has been a suggestion that he might even pull out of that now that he's got the security situation sorted. As I say, the I's are not dotted, the T's are not crossed, but I think as far as Harry is concerned, this is a positive step in the right direction.
Also, another story that's caused a stir was from Omid Scobie. That man said to be close to the Sussexes. He wrote about Harry's controversial comments about the Queen and he named names.
Yes, I mean, there's no surprises there. We've all written about them many times before. Harry's kind of legendary historic distrust for the men in grey suits, people like Sir Edward Young, the Queen's private secretary, who he feels is responsible for keeping him apart from his grandmother over the last couple of years. People like Angela Kelly, who's the Queen's closest aide, male or female, who he and Meghan spectacularly fell out with over arrangements for her choice of tiara for their wedding in 2018. And it's something I have to say I don't see ever necessarily being resolved, because Harry clearly has built up such a kind of wall of hatred and resentment against these people. I suspect it will always be a stumbling block when it comes to repairing his relationships with family members, because he has such a great distrust and dislike for the people around them.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. We'll return to her in just a moment, but I want to bring in my panel. Joining me this week is Richard Kay, the editor-at-large of the Daily Mail, and Richard Eden, the paper's diary editor. Welcome to you both. If Harry does come back for the Jubilee, Richard Eden, any interactions with the Queen will just be so closely scrutinised now.
I don't know about you, but I really get the impression that Harry and Meghan are loving all the speculation about whether they'll come for the Jubilee or not. You know, what should be just the wonderful celebrations of the Queen's, you know, amazing long reign, instead is becoming this saga of sort of will they, won't they come? Who cares? You know, just stay away, honestly. It really is just becoming a sort of attempt to overshadow the Jubilee. And I think it's, sure, if they do come, everyone will be watching the reactions. I get the impression they probably won't. They just want us to indulge in this speculation for as long as possible.
Do you agree with that, Richard Kay?
I think so. I mean, if they do come, a lot of it will be about placement and their presence on the Buckingham Palace balcony, so often the set piece for so many royal events in which you can always read a lot into it. It's a bit like the Kremlin, who's in, who's out.
Right.
I mean, I would be most surprised to see them on that balcony. On the other hand, it could be an olive branch attempt by the Queen, by the Prince of Wales, to try and get Harry and Meghan back on side.
It's so sad, isn't it, in, you know, without being too brutally honest, the Queen's later years, that this is how it's kind of all coming to a climax for her.
I think it's tragic for her. I mean, this is the last thing she wants, are these ongoing bitter rows with her own grandchildren and the family. You know, they had so much trouble in the 1990s, which they had hoped they'd put behind them. But this is somehow even worse, and it must be enormously difficult for her and quite despairing.
Now, you've been writing this week, Richard Kay, about Tina Brown's new book called The Palace Papers Inside the House of Windsor. And I really like that smirk there. I'm quite intrigued. But she does portray this idea of Harry as a deeply unhappy person.
She does. I mean, she's not entirely cruel and unkind about Harry. I mean, Tina tends to look at both sides and present sort of both sides of the story. And because Tina Brown these days lives in America, and she writes with a kind of an American perspective on how they view the Harry and Meghan saga. So she's quite supportive in that area. However, she does make some pretty forthright comments about Harry's sense of entitlement, Meghan's failure to grasp, a willful failure to grasp what the institution was that she was marrying into. She conflated the idea of monarchy with celebrity and thought because she was marrying, you know, the most popular member of the royal family, she and Harry would be therefore right up there, and she never really got that. And Tina nails that in that usual kind of Tina Brown-esque way. I mean, it's a very readable book.
No, fascinating. What I'm interested, though, is I think in this country a lot of us have really come to embrace Camilla in the more recent years, you know, as a time when she wasn't really accepted as, you know, possibly a future queen. I was fascinated to learn that Harry still, according to Tina Brown, holds some of these resentments against her.
Yeah, again, that's not entirely unknown. I've been writing about Harry and William's attitude towards their stepmother for many years, and Harry in particular has never warmly accepted her. There was always a degree of resentment. But Tina, again, goes into that in some detail. A lot of it, she suggests, stems from the fact that when she moved in with the Prince of Wales all those years ago, she took over his bedroom at Highgrove as her dressing room. And he, you know, one can imagine that rankling with a boy, maybe a young man, but for it to go on for 20 years seems absurd. There have been immense difficulties over the years between they're not close. Let's put it like that.
They're not close. Very diplomatically put. I mean, Meghan does seem to have been portrayed as this power-hungry character, and even some detail about would have having to resent curtsying to Kate when she was the Queen. Do you buy that?
I think it was all part of that clash of, so I wouldn't say Hollywood, because Meghan wasn't really a Hollywood actress as such, but sort of show business and royalty. And I think Meghan got used to the freebies, got used to that sort of life. And then remember, she started a lifestyle brand, which was really about plugging things. You know, she would get all these great trips or
the TIG,
freebies, and it was all about promoting them. So she had to give that up. And from what Tina Brown says, she was still keen to make sure some freebie sort of kept coming. And that really is awkward for the royal family generally. And it's all part of that clash of what she wanted, what she thought she could achieve as a member of the royal family and what the institution would allow.
But in amongst all this, there has been some positive reporting, hasn't there, Richard Kay? And that another book out this week from one of our former guests, Robert Jobson, called William at 40, suggests that the whole Megxit fallout has actually done wonders for Charles and William's relationship.
Yeah, it has. I mean, it's often forgotten that the real problem relationship between Charles and his sons was not with Harry, but was for many years with William. William was the one who took his father for granted, treated him in a very off-the-cuff way, dismissively at times. And the result of the fallout with Harry has brought father and older son much closer together. They've got a common enemy, if you like, or a common purpose in trying to control Harry and the whole Californiaization of the Sussexes. So, it has had a beneficial effect, a beneficial advantage for Prince Charles.
Do you think that there would have ever been a time when William and Harry were bonded over? Because I'm just fascinated by, you know, some of the things that Harry said about Charles as a father being quite awful. Do you think that there was a time when they kind of agreed that they were a bit hard done by their dad, and that's...
Well, no doubt that when they were growing up, after Diana's death, William and Harry were left for a large part of the time to fend for themselves. Now, I'm not suggesting they went feral, like, you know, like a single parent
Hardly
family.
in a royal family.
Hardly likely within the royal family. But Charles was always only too happy to defer everything to staff, to nannies, and other people to help out. I mean, he had enough on his plate at the time. He was trying to win acceptance from the public for Camilla in his life, and he was utterly selfish and focused on that. And there were net fallouts for the relationship with both William and Harry subsequently.
It's amazing, isn't it? You know, being a privileged royal household doesn't stop all the family stuff. But let's hear again now from Rebecca English. Rebecca, we're back into the swing of royal tours again, and Charles and Camilla have released details of their next visit.
Yes, we've got another royal tour coming up next month, a 3-day trip to Canada for the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall from May the 17th to the 19th. In fact, it's quite staggering given the fact that they're kind of 73 and 74 respectively, but over 4 days they're going to be travelling 9,000 miles, including 2,000 miles across Canada from coast to coast. They're going to be undertaking this trip to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee at the invitation of the Canadian government, and it's a really strong itinerary, I have to say. There's a lot on climate change, there's a lot on going out and meeting and greeting people, there's a lot of work with Indigenous communities out there, and I I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that there has been a lot of commentary and debate following the last 2 royal tours to the Caribbean. But it's going to be a good trip, I have to say. And obviously, it's one of the first, no, in fact, it is the first trip that the Duchess of Cornwall has undertaken since being nominated as kind of Queen Consort in waiting. So I think it'll be quite interesting to take the temperature of how well she's going to be received when she goes to Canada, where historically the monarchy, the British monarchy, is pretty popular. But hopefully I'll be with them and be able to tell you more about that in a couple of weeks.
And speaking of foreign trips, Princess Beatrice went on what looked like a royal visit to Sweden this week.
As you say, Princess Beatrice was out and about on an international trip this week. Very much a private trip, not there on behalf of the Queen, but it's a visit that made a certain amount of headlines. And she was there with members of the Swedish royal family, with dignitaries, with leading academics in the field of dyslexia. Now, dyslexia is something that the Princess Beatrice was diagnosed with as a young girl, and she has always been very passionate as an adult to campaign to ensure there's more research in the field and that young people get the help and the support that they need. Her sister Princess Eugenie has actually also been in the headlines. She has recorded the first episode of a podcast series that she's producing with one of her best friends on the issue of modern day slavery. Now, the timing of this podcast is not great in some ways because, of course, news of the fact that the first episode was coming out emerged just as her father, the Duke of York, was stripped of his freedom of the city of York by the local council. Many members there have been kind of outraged over a lot of what's gone on involving his court case with Virginia Giuffre and the fact that he settled with her out of court. They felt that it has brought disrepute onto their city. And while they can't take away the title of the Duke of York, only the Queen can do that. And I don't think there is any chance of her doing that, I have to say. But they have taken away the freedom of the city. So both the York girls in the news this week for very different reasons.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let's hear from our panel again now. Richard Eden, coming to you. What do you think is behind this, what seems like a sudden PR push?
It's been so notable because these events have happened the same week. Behind it seems to be, I do perceive, a drive for them to have a public role. And that is something which their parents, and particularly Prince Andrew, have always wanted.
Well, you've always wanted that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, but I should say when I sort of was championing them a lot before their father agreed to pay millions to someone who accused him of sexual assault. So that did rather change things. And it's awkward. You know, this week we've had the councillors of York voting to strip Prince Andrew of his freedom of the city honour. And you've got that at the same time as his daughters are forging ahead with a sort of public role. So it is awkward.
Richard Kay, there was a story in Private Eye this week that claimed that the princesses had brokered Harry's visit to the UK and sort of like been, I suppose, the peacemakers. Do you think they could have a future royal role?
I don't think they're going to have a formal royal role at all because Prince of Wales has made it absolutely clear what his plans are for the future, and it is, as we've discussed on many occasions on Palace Confidential, a slimmed down royal family. Expanding it to include the York daughters, as generous as they are with their time, to help the royal cause, I think is unlikely to happen. But they will, from time to time, do things which are going to be curious to the rest of us. It looks like that they might want to have a royal role, but they don't. They have full-time lives outside royal duty, and at the moment there are no plans for them to expand it.
Let's make clear that the two causes they've been involved in this week are, really worthy, and if they can do something to promote, to fight against modern slavery, or in Beatrice's case, to highlight dyslexia and the way it affects so many people, they can have a very useful role, I think.
Well, I mean, I haven't met as many of the royal family as you have, but I have actually spent time with Princess Beatrice, and she's really lovely and really chatty and really personable. I think it would be a great thing, but it's interesting. But let's move on. I want to talk now, Richard Eden, about this Charles and Camilla trip to Canada. Now, I'm still considerably younger than our future monarchs, and I'd be weeping at the thought of a 4-day work trip to Canada. I mean, can we really be expecting this from people at their age?
Well, come on, this is the age of the older people. You know, we've got Prince Charles is, what, 5, 6 years younger than the leader of the free world, Joe Biden.
Oh, well, yeah, how's that going? Yeah.
And he's a very active person. I mean, I think perhaps for Camilla it's quite awkward. You know, people joke about her never having done a day's work in her life before she married Prince Charles, and now she's got this sort of major role, you know, into her 80s almost. So it is definitely going to be a challenge. I wonder whether she really does relish the prospect of being Queen.
Is this a budget concern, Richard Kay? Is that, you know, would anyone really begrudge them taking a little bit more time on a kind of a big abroad trip?
Well, I think we've got to look at the history here. I mean, the Queen kept royal tours, major royal tours, into her late 80s. The Queen Mother, I remember going away with the Queen Mother when she was over 90 to Canada, funnily enough. I think that was her last ever royal trip. I mean, it is what they do, and I think as long as he's Prince of Wales, Charles realised he's got to be as visible as possible. Camilla does find travelling tiring, exhausting. She doesn't like flying very much. But these are difficulties that they've together have managed to overcome. They're quite short, their tours now. They don't do terribly long days. But I don't think Charles is ready to slow down quite yet.
Gosh, whatever he's eating for breakfast, I want some of that. But Richard, a last word on your column today. Something about the domestic life of a royal pair?
Oh, God, this was fascinating. Look, they're not really royal, are they? So Zara, you know, she might be the Queen's granddaughter, but
she's royal. She's royal
she doesn't
enough.
have a royal role,
Yeah.
but she is the Queen's granddaughter. And her husband, the former England rugby captain Mike Tindall, sort of given a very interesting insight into their home life. He tends to say these kind of candid things, and he said that basically Zara's stopped cooking for him, that he's kept up his eating habits that he had as a top rugby player. He has, I think it was 4 or even 6 meals a day, and he likes...
He's a growing lad.
he likes red meat in the evening, but since having children, Zara's gone off red meat, so presumably she cooks for her and the kids, I don't know, chicken or fish, whatever, but no, he's having his red meat. And he doesn't want to cook himself, so he orders in food every day. So you get this delivery coming to, you know, the Gatcombe estate where they live in Gloucestershire. It must be a great number for their local takeaway.
So yeah, it sounds like the restaurant Chez Tyndall. Anyway, but that is all we have time for today. My thanks to Rebecca English, Richard Kay, Richard Eden, and you, of course, our loyal viewers. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.